Hello, we are live. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Heather Pinnock. I'm Managing Director of Hill 60 Bump. And this afternoon and into this evening, we are launching our new app, CaribWatch, which is for Caribbean Emergency and Disaster Alerts. Earlier today, we had a Twitter chat, and during that time, we discussed a number of issues related to our theme. Our theme this evening is Caribbean crisis communication, the digital evolution. And we really want to visit what are the things that have changed, what have changed regarding how we communicate, and how can we improve on that, and how can we use that to our advantage in the case of crises, disaster and emergency situations in the Caribbean. Yesterday, CDEMA, the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, had a press conference for the start of hurricane season, and they spoke about what's to be expected this year, and they also spoke about their collaboration with us. And one of the main things they spoke about was the fact that we need to take advantage of new communication and new media as a way to spread our message and to save lives, to share information that will save lives and livelihoods. This is a good time for me to introduce Dr. Master Forbes, who is our media specialist who has joined us today to discuss some of the changes that have occurred in media and how we can use it to our advantage for the purpose of things such as CaribWatch.
Thank you very much, Heather. It's my pleasure to be here in my first Google Hangout, so I'm very excited.
So do tell us, what do you think are some of the things that have changed and how we can take advantage of new media?
Well, over the last 10 years, Heather, a tremendous amount of the ways in which we communicate have really evolved. And, you know, for media practitioners, we've seen so many disruptive technologies, and that has made us pretty much look at the models that we've been using. And in particular, when we talk about disruptions, social networks come to mind, top of mind, because one would hardly believe that Facebook is just about 10 years old and all the others are younger than Facebook. The Twitter and the Instagram, Pinterest, Snapchat, every day there's a new one, and they each serve different, and Google Hangout, how could I leave out Google? They each serve different functions, but what they have all done is to revolutionize the way we communicate and the ways in which they have changed our expectations with regard to information, because no longer do we expect to have information tomorrow or when the printed media or in the primetime news. We all expect to have it almost in an instantaneous manner, the way we've watched the Arab Springs and what has happened in Egypt, and we watch hurricanes that are happening now. Everything is available online now in real time.
And I think it's true. One of the things we want to do with CaribWatch is to be able to capture things as they happen, because a number of people say on Twitter that news breaks on Twitter.
Oh, absolutely.
By the time it reaches the evening news, we have all seen it already on Twitter. So we think it's an important way of addressing disaster situations in the Caribbean. So we are going to be joined by Ronald Jackson, the Executive Director of CDEMA. But while he tries to get online, I will just do a quick recap of what CDEMA was discussing yesterday in their press conference for the start of hurricane season. So for the hurricane season, the Atlantic hurricane season for 2014 started on June 1st and goes on until November 30. The forecast for this year is an average or below average season, with a 70% chance of 10 named storms and 5 likely to become hurricanes, with 3 in the categories of 1 to 2 and 1 category 3 to 5 storm. Now, one of the things that has been being said for this hurricane season, that even though it's a below average season, we should still remain alert, because even if there's only one storm, if that storm is a strong storm, it can be quite devastating. So it's still important that we be alert and that we do as much as we can to prepare ourselves and to be ready.
Yes, disaster mitigation is a huge aspect of what we need to pay attention to today, because a lot of us, you kind of hear, okay, it's hurricane season, you get the advisories as to how you're to prepare, but many of us kind of say, okay, no hurricane is coming, or it's just a little rain or flood, and we take it for granted and push it aside, and you only want that flood to happen in one of these areas that will impact a number of others, and you hear children getting, people on gully banks in Jamaica who live on the gully banks, gullies eroding. So we really have to take it more seriously. And social media is an avenue for us to share that information. I know internet penetration in Jamaica is not as deep or as fast as we would like, but many of us in Jamaica now have smartphones, and a lot can be accomplished by simple text messages. It doesn't even have to be a smartphone, because text messages work with feature phones very well as well.
Okay, I believe that Mr. Jackson is trying to sign in. Yes? Okay.
Well, we'll ad-lib while Mr. Jackson signs in to emphasize the ways in which we should grasp the opportunities now that the internet offers and that mobile phones offer as an avenue. And so I'm very pleased with the work that CaribWatch is doing, because this is a real opportunity for us to use social media for social good. It's not just about tweeting what we have. Everybody thinks that we'll tweet what we have for breakfast, and we tweet, okay, I'm going out now. But there are a lot of other things that can be done with social media, and we really are the ones who choose to use it in a particular way. And we saw in Jamaica The Voice and Tessa and Chin, and the way in which the entire Caribbean and the wider diaspora, how we all got involved in trying to push Tesson over the winning point. And then we saw follow-up with Shaggy and Friends, where that was streamed live, and that event was really for a social good, in that the Bustamante Hospital for Children, the only one of its kind in the English-speaking Caribbean, where that hospital got millions of dollars through that concert that has been staged over a number of years now, and how social media was very integrally embedded in that event, and how it brought so much greater participation.
Okay. I think we have Ron Jackson. Are you hearing us? Hello?
I'm hearing you. I'm just trying to speak. You can.
Yeah. Okay. Well, one of the things that we want to talk about in particular, which we raised earlier in the Twitter chat, is the fact that 2014 marks 10 years since Hurricane Ivan, which was a devastating hurricane which had wide effects across the region. And we wanted to really look at what has happened, what has changed in those 10 years in terms of how we get information, how we share information, and how will we react to the next major hurricane that affects the region. So that maybe we can look at what Ivan would have been in 2014. I think Facebook became public in about 2006. Sorry, Ivan was in 2004, and Facebook became public in about 2006. So Ivan was actually about 2 years before Facebook was made public, and then Twitter came after, and Instagram even later.
Yes.
So with that, I would love you to share those stats we had for the kinds of rates at which people were using the internet. So there was a study done by the University of San Francisco, which has shown us that social media has almost completely replaced emergency numbers as the go-to for people to not only find updates, but also to ask for assistance. So to give you a few examples, a few figures that we found, from January 12th to 14th, 2010, there were over 2.3 million tweets containing the words Haiti and Red Cross after the devastating earthquake in Haiti. On March 11, 2011, there were 4.5 million Facebook status updates about the earthquake and tsunami in Japan. In October 2012, at its peak, Instagram users updated Hurricane Sandy related images at a rate of 10 per second. So we can see that as the options for use of social media continue to grow, we have to find ways to use it. So CaribWatch has Twitter accounts, Facebook accounts, Instagram accounts, LinkedIn, YouTube. This will be posted on our YouTube channel, because we want to be able to get information wherever you are, wherever people are using the information. So tell us, what do you think about that as an approach to sharing information?
Well, it's a wonderful approach, and you know, I tell people that even though I personally might not like Facebook, Facebook is the elephant in the room. We can't ignore it. When you look at the statistical data for Facebook, about a quarter of the population of Jamaica would have a Facebook account. We're not sure if they're active every day, but the fact is that about a quarter of our 2.7 million persons in Jamaica have a Facebook account. And so Facebook is really a very good way of sharing information. Yes, we know Facebook has its challenges, and not every post that you make will be seen by everybody who is your friend. But it still is important. Twitter, in comparison, is about 200, well, Facebook worldwide is 1.2 billion with a capital B, billion accounts, compared to Twitter, which is about 200 million active users worldwide. The fact, though, is that Twitter has really positioned itself as a news social network. And so for persons who want to get up-to-date current news, Twitter to me is a very, very valuable source that should not be ignored. And then with Instagram, you can actually see in a much easier manner the way Instagram is laid out. It's very useful for disaster mitigation and for alerting persons of disasters that are impending, because you can track images in various places.
And you can also geotag, which is also a useful way of knowing where something happens, and as it spreads, we can do geotag to track it. In the app, I hope everybody has downloaded the app by now, and in the app, you will find that you can share all the information. In the app, there's always an option to share information, and that allows you to share it via Facebook, Twitter, whatever social media form, and it allows you to geotag it, and it comes up with an auto tweet, which includes CaribWatch. So we can track you while we're doing this. And if anyone has visited the CaribWatch website, which also launched today, it's now available, CaribWatch.com. You will see that we have on our home page a continuous feed of any and everything that has been posted related to CaribWatch with the hashtag or on our news. So we have a constant stream of information, and in a disaster or an emergency event, we'll be able to manage that stream to check that for that. Okay.
And we could talk a little bit about hashtagging,
yes,
because not everybody will understand this pound sign. You know, the sign that used to be called a pound sign when I was growing up. That you put that pound sign in front of an abbreviation or a word that you might create for a specific use. Like today, we're using hashtag CaribWatch.
Yes.
And so if we were to search that online, we'll be able to see all the comments that have been posted, all the responses, all the engagement that have been taking place through today, the Twitter chat, and now the Google Hangout, and you can get a sense of what is happening. So for a hurricane, for example, Ivan, which was before most of us were using social media, hashtag Ivan, you go, you Google, and you're able to see the feedback from various persons. And so this level of engagement is really, really very useful for emergency management, because I know with Twitter there are persons who worry about sources and reliability of sources, and sometimes people get carried away and exaggerate the extent to which something is happening. But when the government-owned entities or the persons who are so designated, even if they're not government-owned, when the bona fide agencies get involved, this is when we'll have sources that can be trusted, right. And that's very important. So a source like
of CaribWatch provide you with good information. So we get our information primarily from verified sources before we push it. We will share the curated feed, but all the alerts that would go to your phone are only from verified sources. I think Ron Jackson is ready. Oh, Ron, we can't hear you.
Hi, you're hearing me now?
Bruce Carpenter, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm hearing you clearly.
Okay.
Try Ron.
You're hearing me?
He was there just 1 second ago. And this is the thing with technology, that there are usually sometimes pregnant pauses.
Are you hearing me?
But the technology is growing, and we'll have less staccato movement as the speed of broadband increases across the region, and the problem with joining and hearing will improve.
Okay, I think Ron is here now.
Yes, Ron, I'm seeing a shadow of you.
Oh, I'm in a bad spot where light is concerned, unfortunately.
I'm not hearing you.
You're not hearing me?
Yes, I can hear you.
You can hear me? I'm not sure what's going on, guys.
Work on hearing Ron, making sure the volume is turned up as loudly as possible. Ron, voice check. Audio check.
Voice check 1 2 1 2.
Lovely, lovely.
You're hearing me now?
Yes, we are.
Loud and clear.
Are we seeing him now?
Sorry about the light quality.
Yes. Well, everyone, introducing Mr. Ronald Jackson, the Executive Director of the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency. Mr. Jackson, you can tell us about what was the forecast for the 2014 hurricane season, and what you can give us a recap of some of the things that you discussed at your press conference yesterday.
Well, as many would know by now, it is forecasted to be a below average season, looking at probably about 10 named storms, with about 5 of those becoming a hurricane, and possibly 2 to 3 being major storms, categories 3 to 5. What we discussed essentially was to move beyond this whole issue of hurricane readiness. Not that it's not important, and we did speak to the importance of hurricane readiness, but we also talked about the fact that much of the Caribbean is moving out of a drought into the rainy season, and the current antecedent conditions are ripe for flash flooding. So we also chose to remind our public across the region of the importance of being vigilant against flooding as a result of extensive rainfall coming against the backdrop of a drought where the soil was heavily compacted and quite ripe for that kind of condition. We also spoke about the numerous seismic events that have been generated within the region dating back to late last year, with concentrated activities in the vicinity of St. Lucia and Antigua, with events happening also between Martinique and Barbados. Again, a reminder that earthquakes can occur. They have no season. So even though we're looking at the hurricane season in particular, we have to be vigilant that there are other hazards to which the Caribbean is vulnerable to, and which we can become impacted by within this particular time frame. We talked a little bit about the importance of communication and you raised 10 years after Ivan. It is also one of the areas we're going to be focusing on. We have plans to work with one of the impacted countries, namely Cayman, to look at what are the lessons learned 10 years on, and how have these been integrated into the regular planning and programming of our governments and our countries. The event in Cayman is going to be looking at a broad area related to Cayman, but we will inject, this is CDEMA now, will inject a regional piece looking at the financing processes, the budgeting processes, how the macroeconomic targets are affected by these kinds of events, noting that they can set back a country's development significantly. Later on in the year, in December, we're going to have a much more expanded event looking at 3 particular areas: humanitarian effectiveness, so looking at how we manage coordination of humanitarian support. You mentioned the Red Cross, the Salvation Army, and other local humanitarian actors, how we manage that process to support an impacted country. We will also look at it from the perspective of going beyond the national response. When that is exceeded, how do we draw on regional resources and assets to support a national impact? And when we go beyond regional, when it is in the context of a Haiti, or perhaps what Grenada and Jamaica would have looked like in the Ivan and Gilbert scenario, how we go about integrating international support within the context of a regional national response. We spoke about, yes.
Could you share with us how you are incorporating communication technologies into these plans?
Definitely, we were just going into that. No, I mean, we're using a lot of communication technology. ICT is a very important plan for us. And beyond the tools that we use, such as WebEOC, which is a communications infrastructure that provides situational awareness, and the Duitra platform, which gives you, again, the geography and modeling, we're also having to communicate that information to the various publics. And this is where tools like what CaribWatch application will be very useful for us in terms of expanding our reach in communicating our press releases or situational reports and updates on what is happening and how people can gain support and how the recovery and response process is going. So we see applications such as CaribWatch within the context of the broader social media exchange as being very important in reaching a range of public that we don't normally get to within the current and traditional means of the newspaper or on radio and the television set, so to speak. So tweeting, Facebooking, obviously one of the Instagram. I'm not so up on Instagramming, but we know that is a tool that certainly can be used, especially to share some pictorial information on what's going on. But we are going to be using this platform, and we're hoping that the CaribWatch application will be able to allow us to reach another sector of our society that we've not been able to effectively reach.
Yes, I actually think that one of the aims of CaribWatch is to get more young people who are very tech savvy and use these social media tools at a rate that I could never, that they could really make a difference in being able to record and report events and to share information. And when we have that kind of information, also then what we will do is we will analyze information, so we can start those kinds of stats that I gave you before, which are international stats done by the University of San Francisco, but that we can start having those kinds of stats also in the Caribbean, so we know where something started, what was the effect, what kind of timeline, what kind of information did people get, and how did they react, and to have photo records of that as well as other documented information. So we are very excited about that possibility. I believe Bruce Carpenter is on. Bruce?
Yes, I'm on.
Hi, Bruce.
Hi.
Please introduce Bruce Carpenter. Major Carpenter is from the Salvation Army, and I will allow you, Major, to introduce yourself and your association to date with CaribWatch.
Okay, thanks very much. So I'm with the Salvation Army, based here in Kingston, Jamaica, but I'm at the territorial headquarters, which covers the Caribbean region. We're in 16 countries. So my role is actually more on the development public relations side more than the disaster side, but I'm an incredible fan of social media for so many reasons in terms of communication and sharing information. So I'm sort of very excited about CaribWatch. Also, being not a local in the Caribbean scene, I'm very much wanting to be aware of what's happening in terms of disasters in the area. So again, I use Facebook and Twitter and applications like CaribWatch to keep an eye on things.
Hello?
Hello, could you hear me still?
Yes, I'm hearing you. You're a little bit soft. Are you hearing me?
Yep, so that's the beauty of technology in one sense. It's also a disadvantage sometimes. But I think the power of what we're doing now is the fact that we're in different locations, but we're communicating is one of the benefits, especially post-disaster, in terms of being able to keep in touch with people and keep people informed.
Right. Ron Jackson, are you still there? Because one of the things he mentioned was the Web EOC, which is the Online Emergency Operations Center, and it is so useful for people to know how to use and to be able to monitor. Yes, Ron Jackson, I was asking you to share with us about the Web EOC and how you will use social media or be able to harness social media to get in information about things that are happening on the ground, because very often if something is happening, people will tweet it or Facebook it before they actually call the authorities. So could you tell us more about how the Web EOC would be able to track that kind of information and how CaribWatch should be able to collaborate with that?
Oh, wow, you chose to ask me the hardest question on it. I don't even know where to start. I do know.
Well,
I mean,
I have some exposure to Web EOC here, and we were doing some initial discussions about how we track what comes in on Twitter to determine if it's good information, if more than one person is sharing this kind of information,
yeah,
and to determine if it's something that needs some kind of immediate response.
yeah. We know that the platform is able to interface, certainly. As to the intricacies of it, I am unable. I must confess, I am unable to speak to that. But I do know that the platform itself will really be enriched by being able to pull in some of that information. When you talk about even the crowdsourcing processes, it really is picking on social media to feed information about a particular event. I'm just not, as well, I consider myself somewhat tech savvy. I can't share with you the intricacies and the ins and outs of how it works.
All right. Well, actually, I'm going to ask Dr. Forbes now. What are your thoughts about how people should share information? Because one of the concerns I hear frequently is, what if people are sharing bad information with you? You know, and I do think a lot of it's important that anything related to CaribWatch, people should try to tweet or share facts only.
Well, you know, there's a simple expression: drink responsibly. And I know over the years we've been saying tweet responsibly. And the same thing goes for Facebook. You know, you really should try
Post
not
responsibly.
to post responsibly. That you're not raising alarm or being alarmist in the manner in which, because we know that they're attention seekers, and sometimes people will, will extend on something beyond what it really is, just to get attention. We know they're pranksters. We know there are persons who will post things, hoax and pranks to drive traffic to their, whether it's to their Twitter account or their blogs. And so the real thing is for us to be honest and for us to be considerate in the way in which we go about, especially in emergency conditions where persons are so already quite anxious, that we try to allay anxieties and have some level of integrity in the way in which we post. And it's hard because there is a thing of youthful exuberance, and some of us who are not so young might be equally exuberant. And so it's really about taking responsibility for your action and thinking of the consequences of your actions.
Are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay. Could you tell us a bit about what the Salvation Army does in relation to disasters and disaster preparedness, and how you assist both in Jamaica and around the rest of the Caribbean region?
Okay, well, in terms of preparation, the Salvation Army is sort of well known for its assistance during disaster and post-disaster. So at present, just about all of our Salvation Army centres will have been doing some sort of preparation in terms of responses, especially throughout the Caribbean. For example, in Haiti, one of the things that we were able to do post the earthquake through some generous donations is actually build a warehouse that's allowing us to store materials and that in preparations for disasters that may occur there. So that's just one example of how we can prepare throughout. In terms of post-disaster, we have two or three levels of response. Of course, firstly, there's the immediate response. Now, if you remember back to Christmas time, there was heavy flood rains in both St. Lucia and St. Vincent.
St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Dominica, I think were the main countries affected by the Christmas rains.
So the Salvation Army has a very strong presence in St. Lucia and St. Vincent's. And take St. Lucia, the Salvation Army officer there was out fairly soon and did things from basically making sure people had food and shelter. But I remember reading an account where he actually had to drive quite a distance just to try and find someone that had been isolated to ensure they were okay. In St. Vincent's, we're still actually it's now May, so it's 5 months later, and we're still actually doing some post-disaster relief efforts there in terms of providing mattresses for people that lost bedding in the floods as well. So it can add, and again, take Haiti for example. The earthquake was in 2010, and we are getting closer to concluding a lot of our recovery work in Haiti, but the post-recovery work is where we do a lot of work with the Salvation Army. So yes, immediately after, but also we're there for the long term, because the Salvation Army is in a lot of these places, and they've been there for a long time.
Okay, well, to continue on that, Major, I would like to know what was it you would like people to do to support? Because I've often been asked why have I thought of doing CaribWatch? And one of the reasons is, in particular, after Hurricane Sandy, I was out with the Salvation Army Jamaica team, and we were in Anota Bay and Port Antonio, where people had lost everything, and we were out helping them all day. And when I got back to Kingston, there were so many people on Twitter complaining that they had no cable. And I thought they really need to find a way, and I don't think that it's that people are just misguided. I think it's that people need an opportunity. So one of the things we really want to do through CaribWatch is be able to mobilize people. So by creating a hub where people share information and know that if something is happening, that we create a hub where people can go after an event also. So if this relates also to the diaspora, so if you're in the diaspora, you can actually track what's going on during an event, and after an event you can, because often people are seeing it like, how can I help? That we're providing links for donations to the Salvation Army, to the Red Cross across the Caribbean, so that people can participate in assisting after an event. And apart from just donating from afar, we'll also be able to hopefully mobilize groups of people, because what we want to do also is start our Team CaribWatch, which will include people who get some basic training on how to respond, and also how to tweet, how to share social media messages, and what to do after an event, and people who are not necessarily first responders in terms of healthcare, but first responders in terms of mobilizing people to come and help, like to pack the bags,
Yes.
to sort through stuff, to go out and help. So what we want to do is be able to give people after an event, for example, an opportunity and a way to see that after an event they will see that I am tweeting that I'm going to Salvation Army to pack bags now, and they will see Doc is tweeting that she's going to Salvation Army to help as well. And
which I did go to the ODPM,
right,
when they
so that people can also see by the presence of a hub like CaribWatch, people can see how they can help, so how you can go beyond yourself and assist others. Because I think a big part of what we need to do more of is really be our brother's keepers and help each other. Because after an event, if your house wasn't destroyed, that means it's an opportunity you are able to go and help others. So I just want to know, what are some of the things, for example, just give us some examples of things that Salvation Army does after an event. I know I was involved in some food packing, and we were a team of volunteers. But could you give us an idea of some of the things that happen after an event where you would need people's assistance?
Yes, I can. One of the challenges in terms of post-disaster recovery is very much the fact that it can sometimes be a drain on those people that are volunteering, because there's an incredible need out there, and we sometimes have, because we don't have enough volunteers, people are working 12, 16, 30, 24, 48-hour days. So yes, in terms of human resource, that's definitely a need, and I can see that the Salvation Army through CaribWatch and other areas like that can start to organise and coordinate, because we need to be very clear to be able to tell people where they can go and volunteer in an area. So that's the first good thing. Secondly, as people would know from disasters around the world, funds are a very important thing. So donations of monies that allow us to be able to go out and buy rice and canned foods and foodstuffs like that to pack. So it's good on one hand to have people available to pack, but we also need the items to pack as well.
Okay.
So it's just a matter of mobilising networks. As I mentioned today, as we were doing the Twitter launch, I'm also a Rotarian, and there's other clubs like that, Rotary clubs and Lions clubs, that we can also get involved. Just a side observation, well, we have a cell phone tower not far from where we live, and the one thing I noticed prior to Hurricane Sandy is that whenever we lose power, which happens occasionally, there's a generator that comes online, which keeps the cell
tower working.
And so during Hurricane Sandy, whilst that was passing through, I think we had internet access just about the whole time, because that was working.
I also had internet all through Sandy.
And so that's why I think, again, at the moment we can sort of sit here and say, well, yes, we need people, and yes, we need food, but the problem is you don't know what the disaster is going to be, and the needs post-disaster can vary dramatically. So again, it comes back to good, fast communication. Again, for example, we have a disaster warehouse here in Kingston, Jamaica. But if we've just had a hurricane with severe storms and our roof has come off that building, it is no point people coming there knowing that that's where we would normally be, when of course we don't have a building to operate out of. So yeah, communication is the key.
I support that.
Yeah, well, I'm going to you now, Ron, because I know you had spoken a bit in your speech yesterday about those Christmas rains and floods in the Eastern Caribbean. And I would love if you could just give a little recap of that and talk about the kinds of ways people assisted. Because after that event, I actually saw people tweeting and Facebooking about that they wanted people to support. And they had small groups. They were new, created for that occasion. So what happens is we have accounts that pop up in relation to an event. So after that event, they they started I saw some Twitter accounts started that were trying to get support. And the point of CaribWatch is that we want to be there all the time, so that whenever something happens, regardless of the country, once it's in the Caribbean, we are able to already have a receptive audience, already have connections with the Salvation Army, with the Red Cross, with CDEMA, so we can share, not only share information, but help to mobilize whatever is needed instead of starting new things with each event, because we never know how many events there will be. So over to you, Ron. If you could tell us a bit about that. That's one of the most recent and unseasonal events that we've had, and what the kind of effect was. In fact, I hear it was about 17% of their GDP was lost to that event.
That's correct. That's St. Vincent.
Yeah.
And typically these events can range anywhere from 2.5% of gross domestic product all the way up to 17 to 20% of GDP, and that's significant.
Very significant.
This was two profs meeting roughly around 9 p.m. in the night. Ordinarily, they would have been two separate events that may have given a little bit of rain and maybe changed the weather pattern slightly, but they collided and they resulted in what would be above normal rainfall in all three countries. And if you know the countries well, they are, a recipe for floods. The terrain.
Those three countries were St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and Dominica.
They're steep terrain, perfect for rapid runoff from the hills to the shores. And I think people were caught off guard, and not because the Met Services didn't issue a warning in most instances, but we have to recognize that it was Christmas Eve at 9 p.m. that night. Most people would have been baking, perhaps completing the dressing of their homes, wrapping gifts, doing grand market shopping, as we would say in Jamaica. And so they would not necessarily be locked into, again, the traditional means of communication, which is a news item on the radio or on the television set. They may be watching carols or watching a Christmas movie. Right. So one of the things we do know is that a lot of people pay attention to their cell phones more often than not. And if we are able to use the cell phone technology to transmit information, we've been talking about using it to transmit warning, but also to communicate and to tweet information from our Met office and a warning, then what persons won't see on television, they will be able to pick up by virtue of their phones, assuming that they're involved in tweeting, Facebooking, which most people are today. And if the home has a child, certainly they will pick that up and will be able to communicate that to their families. So that was one of the things we really recognized coming out of the event, that the time of the event, it was an event out of season. It occurred at a very interesting period of the year where people were busy, distracted doing the Christmas preparations. And it caught a lot of people off guard. So for us, we're looking at how we can improve communication of early warning information in times such as these. How can we keep the vigilance high? And we think that opportunities for using social media will certainly strengthen that process.
Right. Well, the CaribWatch app pushes alerts, so the phones would have alerted had they had CaribWatch on their phones in the middle of Christmas preparations or caroling. They would have gotten a message that said the new CaribWatch alert. So they could have checked and said, oh, this is more than just regular rain, because once it's outside hurricane season, we pretty much think it's just rain. So I think having an alert, having something that lets you know that this is more than ordinary rain today, I think that is critical. And of course, I just want to let people know that CaribWatch pushes an alert only for things that are clear and present danger. Beyond, so your phone will not alert for every minor tremor or every time it's going to rain. But the alerts come for more significance. In fact, if you go into the app, you'll see we have 3 color codes. We have green for there are no significant alerts at this time. We have amber for you should be aware that there's something happening in the region, not necessarily clear and present danger. And red for when something is impacting or about to impact land and lives and possibly livelihoods and possibly lives. So we have already kind of differentiated between what information goes there. And since the app hopefully won't go off that often, won't send you too many alerts because we won't have too many emergency situations, that's why we've supported the app with the use of social media so that other information and other things that can be happening and other things that are starting, because sometimes things are starting and you get a few people tweeting about it. And then as it grows, you find more and more people tweeting about it. I mean, just take our launch today. It starts off with 1 or 2 people tweeting, and then today we were getting people saying that we were inundating their timeline. But that is the way that message is spread. When people realize that it's something important, it starts to spread. And again, it becomes important for you to know, where do I go for good information? Because because the example of the Christmas rains in St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and Dominica is a good example of the fact that disasters and emergencies can happen at any time. We don't expect a disaster to happen on Christmas Eve at 9 p.m. So when something happens on Christmas Eve at 9 p.m., everybody is caught unaware. So it is very important that there is something that can say to you, yes, it is Christmas, but there's something important you need to pay attention to, because I'm not sure that I would have been watching news on Christmas Eve night either.
But let me probe a little bit about the alert, the CaribWatch alerts. So you've programmed your cell phone to deliver these alerts. Now, whatever is happening throughout the Caribbean territories in general, you will be monitoring those.
Yes.
And so the alerts will come to me in Jamaica, even if it's something happening outside of Jamaica.
What you will do is you get alerts for something that's a clear and present danger. Right now it gives alerts for the region, because it's right now we're pushing primarily information on storms, hurricanes, tsunamis, and earthquakes, and volcanoes. And right now, if something is happening, even if it's happening in one country, there's a good chance that it might affect more than one.
Right.
So you'll at least get one alert. What we are trying to do is get down to an even more detailed format where it will give you alerts for Jamaica only. But remember, because of the geography of the region, often if something happens in one country, it's going to affect another country shortly thereafter, or it affects more than one country at a time, because it's small islands that are close together. Right. So it's very important that people also use the social media if they're on it. If people get on social media, share news, share information, use the hashtag, and we're actually going to do something with CDEMA to look at this IVAN 10 to say what has changed in the 10 years since IVAN, and how can we do it better? In fact, I think it's something we really want to explore. What are our options that are available to us now? What options do we think could be available in the future? How can we respond better? A number of us who are social media users were alive and did experience and have clear memories of IVAN. And so we want to start the conversation along with CDEMA about what can we do? How can we handle this better? How can we be prepared for something like this? And how do we share information for something like this? Ryan, I have something to say.
Can I pick up on that, Heather?
Yes, please.
Right. I think one of the very important opportunity that CaribWatch and the social media platform also provides is to share knowledge, raise awareness. One of the things we're trying to do is to change the culture of our people, to be like the people in Japan as it relates to disaster risk. So we become a people which is, we're risk conscious, we're aware of our risk landscape, we understand the level of exposure that we face, and we don't act with fear and trepidation, but we understand how to survive within that particular environment which we live. And the Caribbean environment is one of the second most hazard prone in the world. I think second to the Pacific region, I believe. In that regard, we live here. This is where we live. And we have to learn to interact with the hazard landscape in such a way that there is some level of harmony. We won't be able to prevent every event. To do this, we have to keep providing information to people. We have to keep ensuring that people are knowledgeable about the hazard and how to respond to them, and also how to prevent the level of impact of the hazard. So when we move away from the non-disaster event or the non-emergency event, really is focusing now on getting the word out, getting the message out. And a lot of good interventions and initiatives are happening within the region in respective countries and by a multiplicity of partners that need to find its way to our public so that they can learn from this and they can relate to it. Yeah. So I see the platform as being able to provide that kind of support as well.
Okay, well, I think we're near the end of our hour, so I'm going to ask each person if they have any last things to say. Major Carpenter?
Yes, I just like to thank you for your initiative in this area. The Salvation Army exists as a Christian organisation and very much built on service and serving suffering humanity. And sometimes people will say to me, well, there's nothing you can do for me because I'm not really suffering. But I've been involved in enough post-disaster. A disaster doesn't, you're affected by disaster regardless of how well off you think you might be, how well educated you think you are, or even how healthy you might have been before the disaster. So it's good that we've got this platform to bring together all the various key stakeholders and agencies, and therefore, you know, be able to care for people post-disaster. So thank you very much.
Any last words? Any last thoughts?
Well, I really want to thank you, Heather, because we've known each other we met through Twitter some years ago. And I remember when I was writing my book, Streaming Social Media Mobile Lifestyles, and conducting research on Twitter.
My influence, because you made me think how social media is not just idleness, how there's so many ways it can be harnessed.
And so my mentee has now evolved into this coming social media guru for using this particular medium, CaribWatch, for social good. And so I'm really, really heartened because a lot of us in Jamaica and elsewhere, we talk about the waste of time, the idleness that we conduct by social media, and you've taken the bull by the horn and you've brought something to fruition that will help the entire Caribbean region. And so I want to congratulate you on this move and to really, as we say in Jamaica, to big you up.
Thank you very much. And Ron Jackson, final words?
No, I want to second Doc's last comment. I think we have an opportunity to use this tool for good, for the multitude, I should say, of persons, and you know, we should exploit the platform in that way for positive purposes. I know that it's an area of weakness in many of our disaster offices across the region. Some are good at it, others are coming along. I'm hoping that this may be an avenue as well for them to be able to get their work out to their national stakeholders about what they're doing, and also providing a platform for bringing all of the national actors together in terms of information during an event and also after an event. So kudos to you for dreaming this up. And I'm hoping that
here speaking, there are a whole team of people in the room with us, and I have had a wonderful team who has helped me. In fact, I have teams in other countries. We had reps at the Barbados press conference yesterday. We have reps in Trinidad, and I just want to say that CaribWatch is in every way a work in progress, and we are very interested in collaborating and partnering with anyone who is interested, anyone who has good information to share, anyone who wants to help with our volunteer programs. We are very interested in partnering. We're very open to all suggestions. You can contact us by any of our social media channels. You can email us at info@caribwatch.com, and the link to download the app is available for Android and iPhones in the app stores. The link is in the description of this YouTube video.
A question about the BlackBerry users, so you have to hurry up.
Well, we have been working on both a BlackBerry and a Windows version of the app. But again, we're looking for support. We need partners and sponsors to help us to get these things out. They're not cheap to do. So we are working. We actually have our Windows version in draft, but it needs to be complete. One last thing, we have another giveaway. This one we want you to respond either on Twitter or Facebook. And our closing question is, what are the 3 levels of alerts in CaribWatch? Let us know. First person to answer on Twitter gets a prize. And you must use the hashtag CaribWatch. And stay tuned, because we will be, as I said, promoting some interesting activities related to the commemoration of Ivan 10, along with CDEMA and other agencies. And we will have more giveaways and more activities. Hopefully it will all be good activities and no disasters. But if there is a disaster, get ready, get on CaribWatch. Thank you.
Thanks, Heather. Thank you, Doctor.
All right. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Doc.
Bye.